Immediately, a huge wall of fire dried up the water, disintegrated the bull offering and the wood, and scorched the soil around the altar.
Hey, boys and girls, it's time to celebrate our birthdays this week. Look at the screen, see if you see your name. If you're having a birthday this week, it should be there. And hey, if it's not there, we still wish you a very happy birthday from GFBC Kids.
Then Elijah said to them, I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers by fire, he is God. Then all the people said, What you say is good. Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, Choose one of the bulls and prepare it first, since there are so many of you. Call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire. So they took the bull given to them and prepared it. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. Baal, answer us, they shouted, but there was no response. No one answered, and they danced around the altar they had made. At noon Elijah began to taunt them. Shout louder, he said. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought or busy or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all the people, Come here to me. They came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, Your name shall be Israel. With the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, Fill 4 large jars with water, and pour it on the offering and on the wood. Do it again, he said, and they did it again. Do it a 3rd time, he ordered, and they did it the 3rd time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. At the time of the sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!
Tonight would be different than the usual Monday night gridiron. Tonight's event would be a showdown for the ages. In her best on-camera voice, Allie said to the audience,
A capacity crowd had gathered here tonight.
She paused and flashed her biggest, brightest, most dramatic smile and continued.
The prophets of Baal and their entire cast and crew take on Elijah, the single prophetic warrior of the living God.
Laura joined in her most authentic cowboy drawl.
That's right, Al. The hundreds of members of Ahab's team are heavily favored tonight. What makes this an interesting event is that the underdog Elijah is the one who issued the challenge.
Laura paused to give a little cheesy smile, like Allie. But all she could do was drool. She wiped the drool on Allie's shirt and continued.
Yes, folks, Elijah is challenging Israel's reigning king, Ahab.
She flashed the crowd with a toothy grin to redeem herself.
Let's take a look at the events that led up to today's confrontation.
The pregame tapes confirmed what Laura and Allie had said. Elijah approached the king, called him out, and said,
You poor excuse for a king. You trashed this place. Show yourself, you donkey.
Ahab emerged to face Elijah and said,
You puny troublemaker from the slums! How dare you challenge me? Ha 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 ha! I call you out!
The king busted out some kung fu moves, accompanied by some ear-splitting hi-yas in hopes of intimidating the upstart prophet. Elijah laughed to himself and said,
Your idol, Baal, is nothing. It's time. for a showdown on Mount Carmel. Your God versus mine. Bring it on, tough guy.
Laura, overcome with emotion, slammed her fist down on the sports table, and she said,
Why, can you believe that, Elijah? How confident! This is unbelievable.
Allie commented on Elijah's pregame performance.
The prophet does have a surprising amount of poise for being so heavily outnumbered. Let's see if he can deliver.
She explained the rules of the competition.
The first prophet to get his God to ignite a bull sacrifice on the fire will win.
She said, and flashed another $1 million smile. Laura, now brimming with excitement, let out a loud
Yeehaw!
and said,
Then we'll all know who the real God is.
after saying this, she slammed her head into the desk and shouted,
This brings back the good old days, doesn't it?
Allie responded
It certainly does, champ.
and slapped her partner on the back of the head. The prophets of Baal carried the bull to the altar, and for several hours they summoned their God with wild moaning and shouting. Their shouts and moans grew louder and louder as time went on. They danced uncontrollably around the bull, but nothing happened. Elijah taunted them.
Shout louder, you idiots! Maybe Baal's sleeping, or traveling, or maybe going to the bathroom.
The prophets did shout louder. They also began slashing themselves with swords and spears. Blood was flowing. Laura was going nuts in the studio booth and tried to bite a piece out of the sports desk. She was engulfed in the competition. After several more hours, there was nothing. Not a spark, not even a little puff of smoke. The prophets of Baal, panting, sweaty, and drooping with disappointment, were helpless. Then Elijah rolled up his sleeves and poured a huge barrel of water over the bull and the altar, completely saturating the wood. Elijah knew that this would add to the power of the miracle that God was about to perform. Elijah called on God.
Make it known to the people that you are God.
Immediately, a huge wall of fire dried up the water, disintegrated the bull offering and the wood, and scorched the soil around the altar. The crowd gasped at the sight. Allie and Larry looked at each other, leapt off the top of the sports desk, pointing at Elijah and shouting repeatedly,
God is God! God is God!
Everyone cheered for the one true God of Israel and his underdog prophet Elijah. Elijah stepped out and bowed and said,
It's all about God.